Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We are enjoying this pretty weather, aren't we today, Captain Patrick?
Yes, sir, man. I just feel blessed to look up and see blue sky every day. We had such a gloomy January and February that just seeing blue sky every day is awesome.
It is, man. It's beautiful out. As you guys can see, I am joined today with Captain Patrick Garmiston with Ugly Fishing. You got a good trip today in the past couple of days, hadn't you, Captain Patrick?
Man, it's been good. We've done everything from sheephead fishing out at the rigs to red fishing in the marsh around the Mississippi Sound and red fishing around Weeks Bay, Magnolia River, Eastern Shore. I've kind of spread myself all over the bay, and I mean, I'm catching fish everywhere. So it's been a fun week. Especially with, like I said, the sun shining and we're catching fish, you can't beat it.
No, man, you definitely cannot beat that. That's great. I know we were talking last week a lot about the transition, between we kind of get a spring here, but you know what I mean? The transition from the colder temperatures to the warmer temperatures, you're seeing a lot of change.
A lot of the change that I'm seeing is we're starting to see, I haven't really targeted speckled trout a lot, but just the redfish in general, there's been a lot of movement, seems like, from the rivers and creeks out into the open waters of the bay. But really a lot of what seems to be happening is now that water temperatures stabilized above 60 degrees and it's anywhere from 60 to 65 depending on where you're at, maybe even 66. If the fish are really aggressively feeding now, they're not as lethargic as we've been talking about all winter long. A redfish, when you set the hook on him, he's pulling drag and trying to break you off immediately. Yeah. It's not just this, a fish that's kind of wallering around and you get to kind of drag them in the boat. So yeah, the fish have been getting a lot more aggressive. Been mostly targeting fish with live shrimp and shrimp imitation baits. That's been the redfish game. But man, I'll tell you the sure true sign of spring is that it was that sheephead bite we got on. Mm-hmm. We had really nice calm conditions this Monday. We hit a couple of rigs and it seemed like the bite was okay. And then we moved to another rig. And I always talk about this, and with sheephead fishing this time of year is I like to see some fish up top and see that I like to see not just one solo fish, but I like to kind of ease around till I see a spot where there's like 5 or 6 fish on one pole. Mm-hmm. And if I see that, I'm gonna stop and I want to give that some time. And we made a couple of moves, and we would see one here and we'd see one there, and we'd pick up and basically catching one here, one there. And then we made a move on the rig, found where there was one of the big legs had probably 6 fish on it. I'm like, all right, guys, this has got to be the mother lode right here.
Mm-hmm. Game on.
It was game on. Every drop, you drop a dead shrimp, a live shrimp, and it got so crazy that right at the end, I was like, all right, I'm just going to screw it. I'm going to try something. And I put a slick lure, the
I saw that
jig head. I dropped that joker 10 feet deep, and all of a sudden the line went slack, and I set the hook, and I had me a 3 or 4 pound sheephead on a slick lure. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I told the guys, I said, boys, y'all are witnessing what sheephead fishing is all about, and this was as good as it gets. And man, we had some real hammers. We had some fish up to about 8 or 9 pounds. The guys kept a few for make some ceviche and some fish tacos and whatnot, and threw a bunch of fish back. But man, it was an absolute blast. So I would anticipate that holds up for the next couple weeks. And if folks are out there looking for a sheephead bite, that's especially once the sun's up and you can look down into the rig and see where these fish are, that's going to help you maximize your catches a lot.
Heck yeah, man! That sounds like a lot of fun. Good, man. Let's dive into this thing. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by CCA Alabama. They're having a Tag Alabama seminar this Saturday at the boat show in Orange Beach at the Wharf. This is going to start at 1:15 p.m. There'll be a short presentation at the seminar stage, and then they will do an orientation for anyone who wants to start tagging fish with them. Another great way to support conservation projects like the Claude Petit Flounder Hatchery and the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama Saltwater Fishing license plate. Just head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours.
I want to say something about that real quick, Butch. I have 2 CCA plates, one on my old truck, one on my new truck, and I'm also tagging a lot of redfish. I'm actually out of redfish tags, so I need to get with Blakely and see if he has any redfish tags for me. If not, hopefully I'll see him Saturday.
That's right.
It's a really cool experience. I get to, especially with customers, sometimes I'll have people that are strictly catch and release, and I'll have some that want to just keep a couple of fish. And it's a really neat way for me to be able to bring my customers in on educate them on why we're tagging them, and we're taking more time per fish and really enjoying the whole situation a lot more. And man, they're really digging it. They really enjoy putting the tag in or helping me put the tag in and document everything, and then letting that fish go. Man, it's a really rewarding experience for me and my customers. So.
Absolutely, yeah. The guys that fish a lot, they need to get some of these, like a tagging kit, and keep it on your boat, because you're right. It is a cool thing to do. It's great to tag or just release. Sorry, not tag. It's great to release a fish. Take a picture and then throw it back in the water. But this is more of a trophy scenario, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It gives you incentive, and it's like, man, take a picture with that fish with a tag in it, and then you really did something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, let's head on down to our first contributor, Captain Patrick. Who's going to do our first report for today, bud?
Well, we're going to go down to Orange Beach, Alabama, and hear from fellow Daphne alumni Patrick Ivie.
Captain Patrick on the Breathe Easy. How we doing today, Captain Patrick?
Good. How about you guys?
Oh, man, we're both just happy to see some sunshine and blue skies. How about you?
No doubt about it. This spring is definitely in the air.
Yeah. You got the boat ready? You on the yard? You off the yard?
We're in the yard, pulled out Monday, and hope to be back in the water on Friday.
Shipyard word. That's my favorite.
Yeah. And fishing's picking up, and people are starting to get offshore, and we're sitting at the dock, basically, sitting in the boatyard, ready to get back in the water.
Oh man, that's not good. But I know you always have your fingers on the pulse over there. What's the story? Tell me a fishing story.
Fishing offshore this weekend was really, really good. Several boats offshore, 3 specifically that I talked to, and between those 3 boats, they caught 10 blue marlin and had a couple more shots.
Wow!
So it was really, really good offshore. Couple of nice tunas. Buddy of mine caught one around 170 pounds, and then another boat caught a couple that were, both of theirs were over 100, and then one of the other boats said they caught all they wanted. It was really good, and said they couldn't get away from them, chunking, trolling, and live bait.
That's hard to beat there.
Yeah, were the marlins caught trolling or live baiting or both? I know you said the tunas.
Some of both. Buddy of mine, Jared Johnson from Destin, they were 3 for 3 this weekend, and they had a double header pulling plugs and caught both of those, and then caught a single live bait.
That is very promising. I'm ready to get out there and do some of that as well.
Absolutely. You and me both.
What's your, you don't have to be specific or name names. Or brand names, actually. What's your favorite plug to pull when you're looking for a big old fat mama marlin?
Man, I as you know, we're big-time live baiters, but if I'm pulling plugs, it's hard to beat old Islander and a ballyhoo combo.
Ain't no doubt about that.
I'm a big Black Bart fan, and then we got a couple of, custom lures that are, not mass-produced that work really, really well for us. A couple of Joe Yees, just kind of stuff that you pick up over the years, and, you throw it out there and it magically gets bit. You know how that goes. Some of your lures you can drag around out there for weeks on end and never get bit, and then you can pull out one that gets bit all the time that wasn't in the spread for some reason, throw it overboard and it gets bit. Kind of look through your lure tray and find the ones that look like they've been drugged behind your truck down the highway. How we tell which lures are the best for us.
That's right.
Is there Is there a particular color preference? Anything that if you just had the one to drag, if you had a color you'd choose?
Man, yeah, Islander wise would be blue and white. Without a doubt, blue and white Islanders produced more fish than any other lure in the entire world, probably won more money than any other lure in the entire world.
That's true.
But there are lots of favorite colors, black and purple.
I like a big old blue and white soft head for a big plug.
Yep. Old Snoop Dogg works real well, which is what we all call a blue and white soft head.
Yep.
Which Butch knows. We got names. Everybody, there's common names for lures around the blue marlin world and stuff like that. We got a lure called Drew Breeze. We got Snoop Dogg.
Mr. T. We got a Mr. T, black and orange.
Yep. What we called black and orange was Halloween to us.
Nice.
But there's really good color combinations, but we're big on trying to, match what's out there. If there's, a lot of hardtails or blue runners around, we want something that looks that color. If we're, trolling a rip that's got a lot of chicken dolphin on it, we want to pull, green and blues or green, blues and yellows, something that mimics what bait is out there, just like when you're trout fishing or whatnot.
Yep, okay. That's right. So you said they caught some nice tunas. That's some pretty big tunas there. They caught those straight south of here, or I know they were catching them over, the west side for a while, but those are more to the south and east.
Yeah, all the tunas sound like they're starting to push. Water's warming up and they're starting to push back offshore. A buddy of mine caught two tunas off the same rig, and one of them had really pink, almost like a clear pink color, and the other one was your normal bright red, dark red color, and that's all from diet. The one fish, the lighter color, they're eating those pogies up there inshore on the lumps and stuff, and they get real oily and fatty, and that turns the meat that color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have heard that, but that's great though, man. Maybe this summer will be better than last summer for them tunas. That was rough last summer.
Yeah, let's hope so. They get a lot of pressure on them. Sounds like they had a really good late winter, early spring on them so far this year. A pile of 200-pounders caught.
Well, it's been just a weird year altogether. So maybe this year will be a little different than the last couple of years on tuna.
Yeah, no doubt. Hopefully so.
All right, buddy.
That'd be good.
Yeah, it would be good. We like to get that offshore tip from you each week, and this week's offshore tip is brought to us by Killer Dock. They will be at the Orange Beach Boat Show this weekend. You guys go check them out at the wharf if you hadn't put your hands on one of these things yet. Old Captain Patrick Garmison cleaned some sheephead on them, last week?
Yeah.
It's pretty
on table, sir.
It is. You have to get you one. You guys go check them out at the Orange Beach Boat Show.
Those tables are fine.
Yeah, they are. And if you guys can't make it to the boat show this weekend, just check them out at killerdock.com to check out the greatest fish cleaning stations known to mankind. What you got for a tip this week, Captain Patrick Ivie?
This time of year, everything's starting to come together. Fish are starting to show up. Typically, most of your blue marlin, I feel like, are resident fish. The tunas stay here year round, but all your bait kind of moves around. Hardtails are starting to show back up. Wads of bonita, all those fish are coming back in here. So offshore, sometimes this time of year, you can hit 2 or 3 rigs that look like a desert and get to a rig that is chock full of life. This time of year, bounce around until you find a rig that has some bait and then camp out, and usually good things will happen.
Yeah, predators are going to be where the bait fish are. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I see a lot of that trout fishing throughout the summer. Really almost all year, but it's especially the case in the summer and the winter when I'm fishing deeper water. Man, trying to find those bait balls and stuff really helps put me on the fish.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And, those bait, you looking for them on mostly your machine or, sight?
A lot of your machine. I like to see a little bit of both. One of the things we pay a lot of attention to, if bait's up around on top and everything like that, bait's got to be there, period, for fish to be there. But you don't want to see a lot of happy bait. You want to see nervous bait. So if the bait's up there on top, way out away from the rig, chances are there's not much going on right there at that time. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a fish, a half a mile or a mile away from the rig waiting on feeding time. But, you definitely want to mark some on your bottom machine, too, that's down, a couple 100 feet and, staged up. That to me is what you're looking for.
I like it, man. That's a great tip, man. We appreciate you being on the show as always, Captain Patrick, and hope the boat gets off the yard soon. And man, I wish y'all luck. I know we'll talk to you again soon, but wish y'all luck on this tournament season.
Thank you. Man. Appreciate it.
All right, man. That's an exciting offshore report. I like to hear about those tunas and those stick nose fish.
Man, I don't know anything about catching any of them, but I always get excited when somebody starts talking about blue marlin.
We'll have to get you out there, man.
Yeah,
I'd like to see you on a big old tuna or a marlin.
Maybe a marlin. I don't know. Just tuna fishing just seems like it's too much like trying to drag a dang Jack Cavalier by his tail.
And a lot of times it is, maybe 10 times worse than that. All right, man. Let's head on down to the Gulf beaches and see what the Bama Beach Bum is doing. Matthew Isbell. How we doing today, Matthew?
Doing good, fellas, and I'm hanging out with my 16-month-old daughter, so if you hear some screaming and whining, that's what's going on.
That's okay, man. Maybe she has a report too.
Yeah, maybe or she's calling you out on your lies, right?
That could be.
That's right. But, yeah, if you hear a feel that I might be going the wrong direction and not telling the truth.
There you go.
All right. Well, what's been going on? Tell us a fish story.
Yeah, it's the pattern this past week and for coming up this weekend, I think this is gonna hold. Fishing in the morning in the AM has been just dead. I mean, unbelievably dead in the surf. If you've been going out in the mornings, which most people do, that's what most people want to do. They get out there early in the morning. It really just has not been worth your time. I've even been I've been running 2 trips a day. But this past week, my morning trips, I've been saying, guys, it ain't even worth going.
Yeah.
It's been that bad. We'll stay at rods and won't get a bite, no matter what you do. And I'm out there every day. I'm fishing all the way from Orange Beach to Fort Morgan. I've used every bait from ghost shrimp, fish bites, sand fleas, fresh dead shrimp. I've used it all. So
that's interesting.
It doesn't matter what you do.
Are y'all dealing with some really low water?
I don't think the theory that I have on it, I think it is tide related, and I think part of it too is we had that full moon kind of come, that cycle, and it really, I think that kind of threw off that early morning bite. I think that was part of it. Of course, we're away from that now. But it's still kind of that way. And I think it has to do with the tides. I think because the water temperatures, because for sport fishing, water temperature is important for everything, but it's so important for these pompano, that water temperature being, that 68 kind of degree mark and, low 70s. And we're still not there yet. And I think what we're needing is that really warm Gulf water. And even though I like fishing in the incoming tide, and the incoming tides have been in the morning, I think you really got to be close to that higher tide, which has been in the afternoons here lately. And I think you got to be closer to that, whether that's leading up to it, on the backside of it, which is going to put you in the afternoon, evening time when the bite's better. And that's been the case. So that's my theory, is being just hugging as close as you can to the high tide, because that's going to be when that warmer Gulf water is the most present, in the surf. And that's when we're catching fish. So
that makes sense.
But I could be wrong. That's a theory.
Right. That's right.
I'm guessing.
We're always guessing.
That's right.
I know. It's
educated.
crazy.
Guesses. Educated.
Yeah.
But what you been catching?
Yeah, we're catching mainly whiting and a lot of pompano, a lot of short pompano, but we're catching them. We are getting some legals mixed in there. It is early. It still is early. I mean, and
oh, you're lying. Are you really catching pompano?
Oh my goodness! So she's calling me out. That's my daughter. Yeah, she's not happy back there strapped into that car seat. But it's still early, I would say, especially for running the beaches. I mean, you can still find pompano around structure. That's kind of been the pattern throughout the winter. But if you're fishing the beaches, it's going to be a tougher go at it. But we are catching them. Whiting is still your best opportunity, and that's what we're catching a lot of in the evenings. I will say it's been I was talking to my group today because we had a really good day with whiting. But locating them can be tricky because over the last 3 days, they've been in 3 completely different places in relation to the bar.
Okay.
So, and that can be frustrating when you expect them to be in one place and they're not, and you're trying to locate them within that area and they end up being somewhere else. For instance, 3 days ago, or 2 days ago, however you say that. 2 days ago, they were on the front side of the bar within like 20 yards of the beach, so pretty close in. And then yesterday, they were on the back side of the bar, probably anywhere from 40 to 50 yards. And I'm fishing Fort Morgan area, which the bar's closer, so you can, fish either side of it. That's not, it's completely different fishing in different parts of the Alabama coast, but it probably holds true. You probably are going to have to move your baits around to find the fish, I would think, in those areas as well. But we were fishing on the back side of the bar yesterday, catching whiting, but they couldn't buy a bite on the front side of the bar. And then today we got out there. It took me 45 minutes, no lie, because I was putting baits on the front, the back, and moving them within different distances on either side of it. And we were not getting a bite. 45 minutes. Seriously, did not get a bite.
Dang.
And I was like, well, maybe they're on the bar. So I put a bait on the bar and immediately got a bite. And it was on like crazy for the next 2 hours. Like we were literally like couldn't keep the bait in the water. It was whiting after whiting after whiting, but they were hugging tight on that sandbar. Really interesting to see over the course of the 3 days, seeing how different it was and where those fish were. And just so, don't get stubborn with your whiting. I mean, they'll hang in one area. That's the fish that you can target in the surf and really crush them, lay into them. Whereas other species, you're kind of waiting for them to be cruising by like your pompano and stuff. But you got to find them. They can be tough.
I've seen that a lot with redfish pattern, especially like around piers and docks and stuff like that, where one day you may be able to hit them and they're at the very end of the docks or even out off of the docks. And then sometimes they're midways and sometimes they're all the way up on the shore. So that's really cool that you've picked up on that as well, because it's, the fish are still in those same general areas, but you definitely have to cover that whole area to make sure that they're, to find out where they are. So anyway, that's really cool that you picked that up.
Yeah, they'll definitely keep you honest. Day to day.
Oh man, you ain't lying.
Just like your daughter. Oh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I felt one coming. I thought she was about to call you out. I'm not seeing any reds personally. I mean, I've seen some that have been caught on certain days, and we like historically in surf fishing, the days that we do better on redfish are your really strong current, really rough surf days, and the water's usually a little bit dirtier. The clear water, calm days. Sometimes you'll see the redfish those days, but you can't get them to bite in the surf. It's a little harder. So I haven't had a lot of those days here lately. So, I haven't seen a lot of redfish, but for your bigger fish, we are still catching the big black drum. And, you'll pretty much every trip, here we go. I'm about to tell you a fib here. But every day we're usually getting one or two bites from those big black drum. Whether or not we actually land them, that's another story. It just depends on which rod they take. If they take the one that I'm fishing for whiting, sometimes we end up losing those guys. But if you get them on the right setup, we can get them to the beach.
You ever, I guess you're catching those whiting on fish bites or dead shrimp, or what's been the ticket whenever you do find those big schools of whiting?
It's been on both. We've got, and I use both because, sometimes it switches up day to day as far as what's producing more. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, I would say the majority of the time, you're going to get quicker bites if you are able to locate them with fresh dead shrimp. And, try to avoid the frozen stuff. But that or sand fleas, we haven't started seeing really the colonies presenting themselves on the beaches yet. It's got to warm up just a little bit more before you can really see them. But they are there, and they're mostly small right now, the ones that I've been able to rake up. And those real small sand fleas, like all the whiting that I clean, that's what's in their bellies. And so, if you can rake up some sand fleas, if you've got some time or if you want to pay the money and not buy the bait, that's a really, really good bait for those smaller whiting. But make sure you're using a real small hook. You don't want to use anything too big because they're teeny tiny, but you'll pick up those whiting for sure.
Matthew, I've got 2 bait questions there. You mentioned the dead shrimp. It seems like whenever I always fish for whiting, I always want to peel the shrimp and get it on the hook. Are you peeling your shrimp when you do that? And about what size piece of shrimp are you going to put on your hook?
I do peel my shrimp, and honestly, I don't know if it makes a difference, but I just feel better about it.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know why, but I do. And I use probably about anywhere from a 1/2 inch to an inch size piece. And I'm using for my whiting rigs, I use size 6 circle hooks, and it's the Owner Mutu lights, which of course every brand has different size hooks, but size 6 is what I'm using in owner hooks. And so just a real tiny piece, just really enough to cover that hook. And that's it. And I peel it. So, if you've got a piece of shrimp, an average, shrimp, you can usually cut it into 3 pieces. And, that each piece is plenty big enough to pick up those whiting. And that was even that tiny little piece of shrimp. That's what we hooked up on a big black drum today that broke us off. Those fish will eat those tiny little pieces. We get all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
unbelievable.
Elephants eat peanuts.
Yeah, elephants eat peanuts. What on the fish bites? If you're going to use that, how big of a piece are you going to use? Do you use multiple little pieces? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I cut maybe like a 1/2 inch square, just a tiny little square, and put it on the hook. And I usually on my pompano rigs, I'm using size 2 hooks, so I use a little bit larger size hook than the size 6, that we use on our whiting hooks. And I just want just enough to really kind of go with that hook size, just that's kind of what we're using there. So not a real big piece. And as far as flavors go, I've been experimenting with more, which is kind of fun to experiment, because some days, you'll get bites on one flavor, whether it be shrimp or sand flea or crab or clam or whatever. And some days, one will produce more than the other. So I've been doing that more, but the one that seems to win most of the time for your pompano and your whiting is the sand flea flavor. I mean, if you are only ever going to buy one more flavor of fish bites, that's the one I would say go with for our area. That seems to be the most productive for our area.
That's good to know.
I like it, man. That's a good report. We're going to get that onshore tip from me this week, and this week's onshore tip was brought to us by Trotter Marine. Trotter Marine has their Triton and Crestliner all aluminum boats at cost plus rigging. So what I'm saying is they will sell you a Triton or Crestliner boat at their cost plus the cost to set it up with an engine and rigging. And they do more than just boats. They also have a complete line of truck accessories to choose from. You guys get on over to Trotter Marine on Highway 43 in Satsuma, or you can call Ray or Burns at 251-679-5959, or you can check them out at trottermarinellc.net. What are you thinking for a tip this week, Matthew?
Yeah, something interesting that a buddy of mine that's been fishing with me now a couple of times, his name's Todd Sims. He also does a lot of diving, and he was doing some spear fishing for some sheepshead. And he also was chasing down this school of pompano, and he was reporting back to me that this school was all stacked on top of each other, and the smaller pompano were on the bottom, and the larger pompano were on the top of the school. Well, we've been catching a lot of short pompano lately this year, and if you've been pompano fishing, you're well aware of that. But what I did, because what I had been doing is using a lot of single drop rigs, and which of course is going to be closer to the bottom. I started tying more double drop rigs and making sure that my top drop was a little bit higher, and I made sure I put a float on it. And the bigger, pompano that have been keeper size that we have caught have been on that top float. We haven't caught a lot, but the ones that we have caught have been there. So I don't know if it's an exact science, but it seems to be working out so far. Getting, if we do get a school pompano coming by, and we do happen to catch a legal one, it is high. It does seem to be higher off of the bottom and a more suspended bait.
I like it. That's it's early, so that's a good sign. But I mean, yeah, if you're going to optimize your chances while you're in the water, it's a great time to try it now when those smaller ones are there more.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything to give you a shot at getting one in the cooler.
That's right. Anything.
Man, that's a great tip, Matthew.
Yeah, I really like that tip, Matthew. Anything to add a little more fish to the fryer, I'm always down for. You know that. Well, that's good, man. Starting to heat up all around. If folks want to get up with you and learn a little more about surf fishing and take you on go on a guided trip with you, what's the best way to look you up?
They can check out my website. It's staybummy.com. That's STAYBUMMY.
Awesome, Matthew. We always appreciate you contributing, man. Keep whacking them.
Thanks a lot, Matthew.
Thanks, guys.
See you, bud. All right, Butch. That was a pretty solid report from Matthew Isbell.
I like that tip.
Bum. It's time to go down and check out our buddy Bobby Abrascato. Where are you hanging out today, Bobby?
Parts of Southwest Alabama. How about that?
I like it.
Give us a rundown of kind of what's happened this week and any trends you might be seeing for the weekend and upcoming week.
You fished last week, and everybody, all of us guys, us outdoor guys, are always up early or or at least into the evening. And, you saw that big moon last week, and it's that's kind of a good news, bad news thing. That big full moon, they're kind of starting into a spawning period right now. Really, they get more into it as it warms up just a little bit more in a month or so, but that activity always still, even when they're not in a spawn, like even during the late fall and winter when they're not truly spawning, they still act like they spawn around that moon. That's the good news. They gather up and they bite good. The bad news is after about 3 days of he and she, and they kind of have to every once in a while kind of sit back and go, you kind of almost see them laying back smoking a cigarette going like, ooh, I need a little break, So, you know what I'm saying? So we just got done with that period, and then now we're cycling into this really nice period too, from a tide standpoint, where you got that, when you start your trip in the morning right now, so I'm leaving at 6:30, right now, and at 6:30 we've got moving water, because the tide's starting to come in like, around midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. So you're starting your trip with moving water, and we're behind that kind of, that resting period. Now we've kind of gotten out of that bad 5-day behind the moon period. Then on top of all of that, we're going to warm up a little bit this weekend. The winds are going to clock around more to the east and south. That's going to bring the water levels up. And I think that's really going to come together for a really good weekend of fishing. I love that easterly wind direction. It cleans the water up, particularly west of the Dauphin Island Bridge. And on top of that, if you keep up with Berry steam plant, which is kind of the benchmark for water clarity, it's it'll be under 5 feet, or at least at 5 feet by the weekend. It's under 6 feet right now. So it's really all coming together, man, really for, it was kind of a rough winter, but man, it's really starting to come together for some good stuff, right at the right time too.
I can't agree anymore. I've been anywhere from the Causeway down to the Mississippi Sound and over to Weeks Bay, and man, the water's really improving. I mean, the only places I'm really seeing any bad water is if it's just wind blown and churned up. It's really coming together nice.
Right, and that's going to just keep getting better. Even if you look at the rivers north, way up, that's the ones that obviously feed into the delta. All of those have really bottomed out, and they're not even showing any kind of spike coming up. So we got, it's getting good, man. It's getting like it's supposed to be for the spring. That's
awesome. You been chasing trout or redfish, or what you been doing?
But you know me, buddy. I'm gonna be chasing those trout. What I'm saying? I'm hard-headed, man. I'm chasing after them in the dead of summer when they just will not bite. But yeah, and it's been fun. I love this time of year because I love it all. But I just like this time of year because it's the word you just used, chasing them, is kind of that describes what I do this time of year. You really, you can't go. You can't just go and throw the anchor out on a spot and start catching trout. You have to, like you said, chase them. So I'm looking for things like slicks, and where they were yesterday, they may not be today. You got to really kind of, again, chase them. You got to look for them. And I enjoy that kind of fishing. The reward to it is when it's a function of finding them, because when you do find them, it's most of the time it's an absolute whack fish, because the fish aren't getting beat up because they're staying on the move. When they get into the spawning mode, which they were, through the the middle of last week, they really bite good, so it's really just a lot of fun to do that kind of fishing. And sometimes it actually makes you look like you know what you're doing if you just pull up to an open flat with no structure on it or no markers or anything, and you start catching fish, and the charter goes, how'd you know there were fish here? I said, well, you got a little shiny spot on the water right there, But anyway, so I love that kind of fishing. It's run and gun fishing. It's usually a lot of action. You can get by if you got live bait, it's great, but you can get by real well on artificial bait too, which I really love. So it's just a fun time of year. So yeah, anyway, I haven't said all of that. Yes, I've been trout fishing.
You seeing a popping cork?
Yeah, it's a pop and cork deal. The good thing about the pop and cork is it stimulates the bite, but it also lets you be real mobile, and cover water. So yeah, it's a pop and cork with me. I mostly fish, even when I have live bait. I myself mostly stay with the artificial because I'm trying more or less just to cover water. I want to make sure I find the fish for the group that I got with me, and so I'm using like small, shrimp imitations and so forth under a pop and cork. And just looking for the cork to go down. A lot of times I don't even have to catch a fish when I hit the power poles. And again, that's where the school, that usually that's how you find the school. Then I switch them back and forth between live and artificial depending on how the bite is.
I know.
And it's pop and cork time of year. When I'm leaving right now, I'm having, anywhere from 12 to 14 rods on the boat. And out of all of those, if I got 14 rods, 12 of them are going to have popping corks on them,
Yes, sir, for sure. I know Captain Patrick Garmison did he was interviewed for an article in Great Days Outdoors, and they were talking about the artificial shrimp lures. And when do you go scented or non-scented, or just talk a little bit about that if you don't mind, because I don't
that's
do any
good
kind of scented stuff on my boat just because I'm a lazy fisherman. But what do you guys think about that?
I don't use a lot of scent when I'm trout fishing. They're a visual. It's a visual strike. It's visual. The fish really are more trout are more. It's more of a visual stimulation with them. They're more of sight feeding and ambush feeding fish, and so I very rarely put scent on a shrimp imitation when I'm targeting trout. The only time I'll do it is I carry like Procure is one of my favorites, or I like those fish sticks that come in like a lip balm stick. You can kind of roll it out. By the way, I'm gonna tell you one quick thing. If you use that fish stick, and I speak from experience on this, don't lay it on the dash next to your sunscreen lip balm and be in a hurry, because there's a difference in taste when you put those two on your mouth. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm sure
I'll give you that tip
too.
if you decide.
That's
if you
a
decide
great
to use
tip.
fish sticks, don't lay them next to your lip balm. But anyway, so I like that, and I might do it if I'm getting some short stripes from the trout. I might put a little bit of scent on there just to help out with that. But on the flip side of that, if I'm targeting redfish, I can take the same lure and I'll put that scent on them, and it's amazing by not having scent on it versus put scent on it with redfish, how well your bite, your action goes up. And the other thing is, if I'm targeting redfish, I use a bait that's made of scent, which is gulp. We're all familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably $250,000 fishing with gulp. So I mean, they're a sponsor of mine, but I'm telling you, if you're going to go red fishing and you're using that type of bait, whether it be under a popping cork or on a jig with a shrimp imitation, you're never going to find anything that's going to work better than a gulp for redfish, because it's a visual stimulation. The shapes are real good. The lure, the gulp itself, is actually made out of the scent, and it literally dissolves in the water. That's why if you leave it on a hook overnight, you come back and it's a piece of leather on your hook, because all that scent's basically evaporated. It does it in the air and in the water, so that's how well it disperses the scent. So anyway, long answer to your question, but the gist of it is, if I'm trout fishing, I don't worry about scent. If I'm red fishing, I'm always using scent.
I couldn't agree anymore, Bobby. I'm always going with the voodoo with nothing, or a DOA or something like that with really no scent on it for trout. And then when I get into redfish mode, I definitely try to add a little bit of flavor to it.
Richard likes those, and he's kind of got me turned. He puts those fish bites on, and those things work good too. And we like those fish bites. I usually don't use those unless I'm tournament fishing, because to me, they kind of affect the action of the lure, but anything like that is definitely going to help you, with red fishing.
I couldn't agree anymore. Richard and I fished a few weeks ago, and he was all about adding the fish bites to this and that, and I added it to my voodoo, and it seemed to increase the bite pretty quickly. So now when I'm red fishing and I'm throwing a voodoo, I'm adding a little tip of little bit of fish bite to it, and it seems to be helping.
And you gotta be a little careful with it, because like you just said, the operative word there is little. You don't want to put a big old chunk of that stuff on there. You just need a little bitty bit of it, because you really don't want to affect the action of the lure too much. You put a big old wad of that stuff on there, and it just changes the way the lure looks. Don't you think?
I couldn't agree anymore.
Sure.
I mean, I'm using something that I'm probably about a 1/4 by 1/4 inch at the biggest.
Yep. About the size of a pencil eraser. That's about as big a piece as I want on there,
That's exactly what I've been doing.
So this is a little off topic, and Patrick, I told you that I wasn't going to tell anybody, but
watch out.
Uh-oh.
Did you tell Captain Bobby that I spanked your butt throwing the slick lure a 3 weeks ago?
Uh-oh.
No, I didn't. I try not to let people know that novice anglers like yourself go out and kick my butt.
No doubt. That was beginner's luck all around, but
But I will take credit on being the guide on that.
That is right.
I get paid a lot more for being a guide than I do being a fisherman. So
ain't no doubt about it.
That's exactly. Hey, you know what? The other thing too. You tell them, Patrick. This is what I always say. I said, well, let me ask you this. So you're taking credit for catching all the fish. If we'd have gone out and didn't catch any fish, would it also have been your fault? Would you have been the one that's the cause of it?
Yeah,
you know, that's it. So we don't get any of the credit, but we get all the blame. Basically, is what happens. You know.
Oh, he knows I'm messing with him.
Thick skin.
Oh yeah. Hey, that's the fun part of it, man. I tell the charters all the time. I said, dude, the best day I ever have on a charter is when I never catch a fish. I want to be down there taking them off and throwing them back and baiting you back up. My best days were the only time I pick up a rod is to help you take a fish off.
Man, I like it. I will never claim to be a professional fisherman. That was all Patrick's guidance. I'm just messing with him.
There you go.
All right, Captain Bobby, we've got the Hey Cap question for you again this week.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this week, Richie Ellison is going to get the Fairhope rattle. Make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem that. Richie Ellison says, hey, Cap, every year it seems like I spend too much time chasing turkeys and miss the big trout window. What is the ideal window for big trout, and when do our trout spawn?
That's a great question. First of all, I don't think you miss it by going turkey hunting. I think you miss some of it, but you're not totally missing it. You know, Patrick catches fish in the dead of winter, which is way out of the spawning period. He catches giant ones. I'm not going to say where, but I'll just say parts north, you know, in the dead of winter. And you know, and some of the biggest trout I've ever caught have been in the late spring and early summer. And if I had to say it, you know, the turkey hunting season, which is, you know, typically March and part of April, you know, you're at the very early part of that spawn. You know, I think I'm leaning more towards more like late April, May, June, but they'll start spawning in March and spawn all the way through late September into October. As long as the water temperature's over 62, they're in spawning mode. What makes the fish bigger in the early part of the spawn is they continue to spawn. The roe sacks actually get smaller, you know, so when you're catching it, you'll still be catching the spawning fish in September. But if you look at the roe sacks, you know, of that same fish in May, for example, or April, it's going to be the size of a cigar. Where you catch that same fish in September, it'll be the size of a pencil, you know, and so that's where the weight's added. You're catching the same fish, you know, but the weight goes up because that roe is so dense. So the answer to your question is you're really not missing it, and especially if you're just turkey hunting, man. I'd set down your turkey gear and grab you a topwater, a slick lure, and get after it in late April, early May, and don't quit until. Patrick, till December, until turkey hunting season comes around again, or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, trout fish from May to January, and you'll be good.
Richie Ellison cannot use turkey hunting as an excuse to make big trout anymore.
Hey, Butch, you said that, not me, man.
That's right.
You know, I'm trying to make the poor guy feel better, you know.
Yeah, definitely can echo what Bobby's saying about that spawn, starting in late April, going all the way into September. But, you know, Bobby, something that I have noticed in my experience is we actually have a really big spawn in August, and I've seen some of the catch or some of the stock assessment data from the marine resources that shows that May and August are actually two of the biggest spawns that we'll see in speckled trout. I don't know what really stimulates that, but I have caught 23-inch 6.5 pound trout in the month of August, and it was all because of the roe. So
that's exactly right, and that's where the weight, like you just said, that 23-inch fish, and you know, you catch that during January or something, it's probably going to be a 3.5 pounder. You know what I'm saying, or a 4 pounder at the most.
But best, yeah.
And I know what you're saying. And actually, I caught one of the biggest trout. I've caught a handful of what I consider real big trout in my life. And one of them was this past year the weekend after Labor Day. You know what I'm saying? It was one of the biggest trout I've ever caught. So, you know, again, to the point is I don't think you're missing it just because you're turkey hunting.
That's a great Hey Cap question. He did mention in the end of his question, he said he fishes Eastern Shore, Weeks Bay, and Fort Morgan Marsh. That's the same, right? That's all the same spawn pattern and all that, or am I wrong?
Oh, yeah. Everything in our system's the same. Really, everything on the northern Gulf Coast is the same.
Right.
You know, so anything in the Mobile Bay system you're gonna be right there with all of that. You know, exactly what we were just talking about. So you know, it doesn't matter.
I thought so. I just wanted to leave it up to you experts to say whether that was related or not, because I left that out of the question.
Well, you got the expert in the studio. I'm just out here on the phone for you. But, yeah, I know what you're saying.
As always, we appreciate you contributing. And thanks, Richie Ellison. Make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to get your Hey Cap questions in.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, Captain Bobby. Keep whacking them.
Thanks a lot, Bobby.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good weekend.
Man, great show, Butch. Anybody that's listening has got to be getting fired up about fishing right now.
I know I am.
Dude, every time I've been on the water's getting a little bit cleaner. The bite's getting a little more aggressive. I am super pumped about the coming weeks and months ahead. So,
I'm with you, man. And, as we always like to do, we like to, between the co-hosts, we like to say, what did you learn? And this week's What Did You Learn is brought to us by Geico. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Did you know Geico does even more than insure your valuable items? They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling all these services with your insurance. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al. A lot of good information this week, man. What did you learn?
Well, I heard something very consistent amongst all of our contributors, and it was about not staying in any one place too long.
Yeah, Patrick Ivie said, find the bait, sit on it, because it's going to be a little spread out. This time of year, it's not going to be every single rig you hit. It's not going to be jam-packed with bait. So use your equipment, find those rigs, offshore with the good read of bait, and look for some on top as well. You're right. And then Isbell said what?
He was talking about trying the, about being past the bar, on the bar, in front of the bar, and then keying in on where those fish are. And
yep.
I mean, like you said, if he had gone past the bar and in front of the bar for an hour, he would have went home with nothing. Yep. But instead, he put a line on the bar and turned into a 30-fish day or something. So
started whacking them. Yeah, and then Capt Bobby said the same thing.
Bobby's talking about running and gunning, and I can't say. I mean, I'm seeing the same thing.
The same thing at the beginning of the show.
Well, the sheephead, we were picking up a one here, a one there, rode around till we actually saw the fish, a bunch of fish, and boom, it was whack fest. I mean, just as good as it gets. The redfish bite has been the same way. I mean, when we're making moves, it's like 2 minutes at an area that should have fish, and if you haven't had a bite within 2 minutes, then keep moving, because I've sat at some areas now for 10, 15 minutes trying to wait on something to happen. And basically I'm just wasting time, because that bite
13 minutes, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Because the bite's coming within the first, a lot of times the first cast, if not the second cast. And then that one, if you catch a fish on that first cast, I mean, that it may turn into 6 or 8 or 10 fish in one spot. So don't sit there and try to wait on a bite, is what I'm trying to say.
I like it. That seems to be the theme of the show this week as well, man. That's great. I enjoyed this show, man. I think it's going to be a great show. A lot of good information. And as always, you guys subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to email us, if you'd like to email you the podcast, just head on over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. You guys get those Hey Cap questions in. They've been a little slim lately on the Hey Cap. You guys email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com, and we'll ask the professionals any questions that you may have.
I got one last thing to add, Butch. I've had the pleasure of taking several podcast listeners fishing the last couple weeks.
Sweet.
And guys, we really appreciate all the support and everybody that's listening to the show. And it means a lot that people are listening to the show and then also hiring me as their guide. It's very humbling to say the least.
I know we were talking about it a minute ago. That was a great We've Got Your Six tournament this weekend. I enjoyed the heck out of it. We brought our lab pepper up there, and my wife was there as well, and I really enjoyed everybody coming up to me and saying they enjoyed the show. And It was awesome, man. That's what we do it for. I've said it from the very beginning. This is the angler show. This is the listener show. We want to do what you guys like, and it was cool.
Yes, it was. Tournament was awesome. So
it was, man. We had a great time. All right, guys. Another great Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. You guys keep whacking them. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week.
See you guys.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Trotter Marine. Call Ray or Burns at 251-679-5959 or check them out at trottermarinellc.com.
Also brought to you by
Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al.
Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org.
Also, Ugly Fishing Charters with Captain Patrick Garmison. You can check us out at uglyfishing.com or call us at 251-747-1554.
And also A-Team Fishing Adventures. Check them out online at www.ateamfishing.com or contact them at 251-661-7696. And also Killer Doc. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at killerdoc.com. That's killerdoc.com.